In this next section, I want to talk about some data lookup operations that you'll be working with, and the first one that we'll talk about here is going to be the VLOOKUP function. A lot of times when you're working with Excel, you're going to have multiple sheets that you're working with. Now, sometimes what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to populate a value on one sheet, but you want to reference or get a value that exists on a different sheet. So one of the ways that you can combine this data is by doing a VLOOKUP command, which is essentially going to look at a certain value on the first sheet, and then it's going to go and it's going to search on a second sheet, and then when it finds a match, it's going to grab the associated value and it's going to return it back over to that first sheet for you. To see this in practice, we can go over to the download section of this course and we can grab a new file for the customers and states. When we open up this file, we see that we have two tabs down here at the bottom, one for customers and one for states. When we look at the customer sheet and we navigate over to column H, we see here that we have a state ID, and that doesn't seem all that helpful because we're used to seeing a state abbreviation. Fortunately for us, the state ID is actually a lookup value or a key for us to find the state abbreviation. If we switch to the next sheet for the states, we can see here that we have that state ID as well as a state abbreviation. So if we go back over to the customer sheet, what we want to do is take the state ID value, and then we want to go over to the state sheet, and we want to look up where that state ID is a match. When it finds the match, it's going to grab the state abbreviation, and it's going to return it back over to the customer sheet. To give us a place to put those state abbreviation values, let's go ahead and create a new column and call it state abbreviation. The next thing that we want to do is automate the process of doing that lookup, and we can do that by typing the equals VLOOKUP command. Next, we need to specify the specific lookup value that we're looking for, and in this case, we're going to select that state ID value in this cell here. After that, we'll type the comma, and then we need to click on the state sheet, and then what we're going to do is we're going to highlight these first two columns here for the state ID as well as the state abbreviation. We need to do this because for the VLOOKUP command in Excel, Excel wants to know the entire range of data that we have to work with here, and that means that we need the lookup key as well as the value that's going to be returned. Now, the important thing that we need to note here is when you're doing this VLOOKUP command and you're specifying this range for Excel to work with, it has a couple really important things to keep in mind. First, for this range that Excel's looking at, Excel is going to look at that very first column in the range to find that lookup value. This means on the customer sheet, when it has the state ID, it's going to come over here to the state sheet and it's going to specifically look in column 1 to see if it can find a match. Now, the next thing that we need to do is we need to tell Excel which column should actually get returned when it finds a matching row or matching record. To provide Excel with that parameter, what we need to do is we need to type in the value of 2 because this is the second column that we want to reference, which happens to be the state abbreviation. Now, one last thing that we need to do here is type in another comma and type in the word false, and that's telling Excel that we want an exact match. Meaning that Excel should take the state ID from the customers tab, it should look it up in column 1 that we have here, and then what it's going to do is if it finds a match, it's going to grab the value out of column 2 and it's going to return it. When we hit enter, we can see that Excel found a match and it populated that state abbreviation to go along with the state ID. The next thing that we want to do is populate that state abbreviation for all the rest of the records. So again, we can just select that cell, double click in that corner, and it's going to populate down. Now for good measure, what we want to do is make sure the formula is returning the value as expected. So let's do a little bit of QA. On our sheet, we can see that for state ID 1, it returned the value of California, but let's go manually look at the states sheet and make sure that ID 1 actually equals California. Here on the state sheet, we can indeed see that ID 1 does equal California, so it looks like our formula worked.